Hello, I'm Nicole Killian in Washington. Tonight on this Friday edition of America Decides, President-elect Donald Trump is sentenced for his New York hush money crimes. The ruling comes just over a week before his inauguration. Trump will now officially enter the White House as a convicted felon.
The people of our country got to see this firsthand because they watched the case in your courtroom. They got to see this firsthand, and then they voted, and I won and got the largest number of votes by far of any Republican candidate in history.
And in Southern California, utter devastation as a picture unfolds of homes destroyed, cars burned out, and at least 10 lives lost. And the winds could fuel the flames for days to come. But first, we start tonight on politics with our Scott MacFarlane and Weijia Jiang. Scott, this really was another historic moment for President-elect Donald Trump. Walk us through what happened in the courtroom today.
This is another distinctive legal moment, isn't it? The judge in this case, this New York City case in which Trump became the first president ever convicted of a crime, unconditionally discharged the case, which is a term that means there will be no sentence. There will be no punishment. There will be no jail time, no fine, no probation, no supervised release.
How significant is that?
Well, it's distinctive. These are 34 felony counts. To have nothing attached to them is significant. It's also particularly distinctive to these circumstances. The judge said it's not practical to issue a sentence against a future president because you can't execute that sentence when somebody is president of the United States. And the judge had said previously, Nicole, you can't have that hanging over his head for 4 years waiting for 2029. So the practical impact was we can do nothing to sentence you for these crimes. What's more, the prosecutors, they agreed that was the only disposition possible.
I mean, but for assuming office in a couple of days, do you think the president-elect, if he was an ordinary citizen, would have faced some type of sentence today or penalty?
Because Judge Juan Merchan indicated as much after the verdict and during the trial, that these are felonies. We have to respect what the jury said here is you didn't just commit crimes, you committed felonies, which often lead to some form of probation, fines, or prison time. Trump's lawyers very deliberately tried to draw out the clock here and delay these proceedings. And this is a uniquely successful example of that. The time ran out.
And Weijia, I want to turn to you. Obviously, we heard from the president-elect during this sentencing hearing. He appeared virtually. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work.
I mean, this isn't the first time we've heard such grievances from the president-elect, but what did you make of his comments?
Well, you're exactly right, Nicole. The thrust of his comments really matched what the president-elect has said during any time he's been investigated, whether it's by a special counsel, whether it's by members of Congress. He claims that this was simply a political witch hunt. And in a lengthy statement that he posted on Truth Social, he actually pointed to the sentencing and the fact that this was an unconditional discharge to say that alone proves that there was never a case and this case should never have been brought. But Judge Merchan made very clear in the courtroom that the reason why he received this non-penalty was because of his upcoming presidency and for no other reason. He said if he was a normal citizen, talking about what you just asked Scott, that this would not be the case. He would not have these protections. But in Trump's view, it's a different story, which is why he promises he will appeal. He says that justice will prevail. And he even tried to block what unfolded today, Nicole, in an emergency motion with the New York Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court trying to get this sentencing delayed. Now, that is one issue. In terms of his appeal, there's a very good chance that the case will also go right up to the Supreme Court.
And very briefly weigh in on that, Scott. Why didn't the Supreme Court stop this from going forward?
Their order and rationale was pretty brief. It was just one paragraph. It was a 5-4 decision, so it was a narrow decision. But this was a crime, allegedly, that occurred outside the bounds of the presidency. Presidential immunity should not apply to this, according to the prosecutors, and 5 justices agreed. But that it was 5-4 could be indicative of what's to come during this second Trump term. A Supreme Court which seems very much aligned with President Trump's interests.
And Weijia, I want to turn back to you. Obviously, there's a lot going on there in Mar-a-Lago, specifically the president-elect meeting this weekend with House Republicans. What can we expect from those meetings?
So, Nicole, this is part of a series of meetings that Trump is having with Republicans, not only lawmakers, but last night he hosted 22 GOP governors at Mar-a-Lago for dinner because he is laser focused on his agenda and trying to tick off as many boxes as he can in terms of delivering his campaign promises. So we know he's focused on mass deportations, on tax cuts, on energy. But when you're talking about members of the House Freedom Caucus, when they sit down with Trump, they also will have to talk about their priorities. There is a huge opportunity coming up that you both cover so closely with the reconciliation process to get some of those priorities done. But, you know, these conservative members, they're going to want some reassurances that there's going to be spending cuts, especially when Trump has indicated that he wants to raise the debt ceiling. They're going to want to know where these cuts are going to come from, that the government is not going to be spending so much money. And they're going to want to present to Trump their own priorities as well. So there's going to be a lot to talk about. And I think this is really just setting the table for what's to come, what's going to be a very busy time for the both of you on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, well, I guess to that point, very briefly, Weijia, while we have you, I mean, how critical are these conversations to advancing the president-elect's agenda, particularly as we see both House and Senate Republicans still seem to be on different pages when it comes to whether or not they should do one bill or two bills?
Yeah, that is going to be a big sticking point. We know that Trump has said he wants one big, beautiful bill, but many members that he will be talking to this weekend see it differently, that they don't want to jam too much into just one piece of legislation, and they'd rather see two separate pieces. And so I imagine that will be a big part of the conversation. And we'll see where Trump lands on this, because there have been openings where he seems to be flexible. But the bottom line is he's going to express what he wants from these lawmakers. And remember, we've seen time and time again how the Trump factor matters and can matter in races. And so, it'll be interesting to see what will happen for those members who do not comply with what Trump asks of them.
All right, Weijia Jiang in West Palm Beach, much warmer than where Scott and I are here in Washington. Thanks to both of you for being with us.